Hello friends. Welcome to the Ben 10 What Ifs. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Ben 10 wielded the blood Omnitrix and got Harem of Charmcaster. Esther and Julie. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Crimson Convergence. The warehouse district of Bellwood had changed. In the years since Ben Tennyson had first donned the Omnitrix as a 10-year-old boy, industrial decay had given way to sleek tech startups and artisanal breweries, gentrification creeping in like kudzu. But tonight, beneath the glow of a harvest moon, this particular corner of the district felt frozen in time. Corrugated metal walls streaked with rust, flickering sodium lights, and the distinctive scent of saltwater mixed with industrial lubricant. Ben crouched atop a shipping container, the cool metal seeping through his tactical pants. At 23, he'd abandoned the jacket emblazoned with the number 10, too obvious. Too much of a target. Now he wore dark compression gear beneath a modular tactical vest, with equipment selected specifically for each mission. The original Omnitrix had been replaced years ago by the perfected Ultimatrix, gleaming on his wrist with its familiar green glow. 3 heat signatures inside the primary structure, he murmured, thumb brushing over the communicator in his ear. 2 near the south entrance, 1 moving between crates in the center. Tetraman signatures. The voice belonged to Rook Blanco, his plumber partner of 8 years. Negative. Human baseline. But the central ones, off. Ben narrowed his eyes, focusing on the thermal imaging display on his wrist-mounted scanner, separate from the Ultimatrix. Temperature fluctuations. Could be tech. Could be non-terrestrial biology masking as human. Proceed with caution. Backup is 12 minutes out. Ben's mouth quirked into a half-smile. When have I ever been cautious? I have compiled 73 instances since our partnership began. Where? Rhetorical question, partner. The smile lingered as Ben disabled the scanner. Going dark. We'll rendezvous at extraction point. He disconnected communications and took a moment to center himself, breathing deep and slow. The night air carried the distant sounds of city life, traffic on the elevated highway, a container ship's horn in the harbor. The bass thump of music from a club 10 blocks away. Insignificant background noise to be filtered out. The Ultimatrix felt different tonight, had for weeks now. Subtle vibrations against his skin. Almost like a pulse. Plumber techs had found nothing wrong, and Azimuth hadn't answered his messages. Typical. Time to work, Ben whispered to himself, rolling his shoulders to loosen tension. He'd been tracking this smuggling operation for months. Alien tech being moved through human criminal networks, ending up in dangerous hands. Tonight's shipment was supposed to contain weapons from the Inkersine Empire, dangerous enough in the right hands, catastrophic in the wrong ones. He slid down the side of the container, boots touching concrete without a sound, a skill learned through years of practice. Not alien transformation. Sometimes being human had its advantages. Moving through shadows between containers, Ben approached the warehouse's eastern wall, finding the ventilation duct exactly where the schematics had indicated. 4 swift movements removed the grate. Another 30 seconds and he was inside, navigating the narrow metal passage with practiced ease. Below, voices echoed. Don't care what Santiago promised you. 20% more of the merchandise stays in the crates. A woman's voice, sharp with authority and the distinctive cadence of someone used to being obeyed. Our arrangement was clear. Male, with the slightest Eastern European accent. 15% was agreed upon when factoring in the additional plumber patrols. Ben position. D himself above a grate that overlooked the main floor. The woman stood with her back to him, sleek black hair cascading down a leather jacket, posture suggesting military training. The man faced her, thin-faced with calculating eyes, flanked by 2 security types with concealed weapons beneath their jackets. Between them sat 7 unmarked crates, each bearing the subtle radiation signature of Inkersine plasma weapons. But something was wrong. The scanner on Ben's wrist was picking up a different energy signature from one crate, smaller, separated from the others. Something that pulsed with biometric readings unlike anything in the standard databases. Final offer, the woman said. 20% premium, or I walk with all merchandise, including the special package. The European's face tightened. The special package was not part of our arrangement. It is now. Her hand drifted toward her hip, not where a normal weapon would be holstered. Alien tech, Ben guessed. Hidden but accessible. Time to intervene. Ben reached for the Ultimatrix, considering his options. Swampfire would provide both offensive capability and regeneration if things went sideways. Big Chill offered stealth and containment. XLR-8 could disarm everyone before they. The Ultimatrix sparked beneath his fingers, an electric jolt shooting up his arm. Green light flickered, then stabilized, but not before a momentary flash of crimson interrupted the familiar emerald glow. Ben froze, staring at the device. That had never happened before. Below, the conversation had stopped. The woman's head tilted slightly. "We have company," she said softly. Ben abandoned subtlety. He slammed his palm against the grate, dislodging it as he dropped through the opening. Landing in a crouch between the smugglers, he straightened to his full height. Hands held non-threateningly at shoulder level despite the weapons now pointed at him from all directions. "Evening, folks," he said, voice steady and confident. "Plumber business. Those crates contain illegal Inkersine weapons technology prohibited under Section 7 of the Earth Galactic Trade Protocols." His eyes locked with the woman, who had turned to reveal striking features, angular jaw, piercing amber eyes, and a scar bisecting her left eyebrow. "Everyone puts their weapons down, and maybe this doesn't end with you in cells at Plumber headquarters." The European man took a step back. "Tennyson," he hissed, recognition flickering across his face. "My reputation precedes me." Ben's mouth curved into a confident smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Makes this easier." The woman didn't seem impressed. "Benjamin Tennyson, the hero with 10,000 faces." Her gaze flicked to the Ultimatrix. "I expected someone taller. Sorry to disappoint." B.N. kept his attention divided between all parties, cataloging threats, calculating angles. "The crates. Now, I don't think so." The woman's movement was liquid swift, producing not a weapon but a small device that emitted a high-pitched sonic pulse. Ben winced as the sound pierced his eardrums, but training took over. He twisted the Ultimatrix dial and slammed it down in one fluid motion, CTing the familiar rush of transformation. Instead, pain exploded through his nervous system. Crimson light, not green, enveloped him as nanites swarmed across his skin like liquid fire. His bones cracked and reformed, muscle tissue tearing and regenerating in microseconds. The warehouse, the smugglers, everything disappeared behind a veil of red agony and strange, alien whispers flooding his consciousness. When the transformation completed, Ben wasn't Swampfire as intended. He wasn't any alien he recognized. His skin had become translucent crimson crystal, pulsing with internal energy that flowed like blood through vein-like circuits. Mechanical components integrated with organic crystal, forming armor-like protrusions at joints and across his chest. His vision had changed. Thermal and electromagnetic spectrums overlaid on normal sight. "What the hell?" The woman took a step back, genuine shock replacing her confidence. Ben looked down at his transformed state, momentary confusion giving way to tactical assessment. Whatever this form was, he could feel its power, similar to Diamond Head but different. More fluid, more alive. "New trick," he said, voice resonating with crystalline harmonics. "Let's see what it does." Quote, the European man didn't wait to find out. He barked an order, and his security detail opened fire with conventional weapons. Bullets struck Ben's crystalline form and shattered on impact, fragments dropping to the concrete floor like crimson hail. Ben felt each impact not as pain but as energy, absorbed, processed, converted. Instinctively, he extended his hand. The crystalline structure flowed and reformed, creating a wickedly sharp blade extending from his forearm. With speed that surprised even him, Ben slashed through the nearest gunman's weapon, leaving the automatic pistol in two before delivering a palm strike that sent the man flying into a stack of empty containers. The second guard fared no better, meeting a sweeping kick that shattered his kneecap before a crystalline fist rendered him unconscious. Non-lethal but definitive, Ben had spent years learning to calibrate his alien forms, strength against human opponents. The European man fled toward the exit. But Ben felt a new capability within this form, channels of energy that could be directed, controlled. He extended his arm, and a crystalline projectile shot forth, expanding It ate into a net-like structure that entangled the fleeing smuggler. Which left the woman. She had retreated to the special crate, fingers dancing across what appeared to be a biometric lock. "Don't," Ben warned, advancing toward her. Her response was to produce a small device from her jacket, unmistakably Galvan technology. "Stay back, Tennyson. This deadman switch is keyed to my heartbeat. You knock me out, it triggers. What's inside this crate is volatile enough to level 3 city blocks." Ben halted, crystalline form glinting under the warehouse lights. "What's in the crate?" "Someth. Worth a lot more than Inkerseen weapons." Her eyes narrowed. "Something someone like you shouldn't want getting into the wrong hands. Then let me take it to the plumbers. Proper containment, proper protocols." She laughed, short and sharp. "The plumbers have been compromised. Why do you think this merchandise made it to Earth in the first place?" "Someone high up greased the wheels." Ben's mind raced. Plumber corruption wasn't unheard of, but it was rare and swiftly dealt with. If she was telling the truth. "Give me a name," he demanded. "Not that simple, hero." She glanced toward a side exit. "Here's what happens. I walk out with this crate. You keep the weapons. Big public win for the famous Ben Tennyson. Everyone's happy. Except whoever dies when that volatile tech gets misused." Ben's crystalline form shifted subtly, energy patterns changing as he analyzed options. This new form seemed to respond to his thoughts differently than others, more intuitive, more integrated with his consciousness. The woman's thumb hovered over the deadman switch. "Life's full of compromise. You're not getting this crate, and I'm not going to plumber lockup. So we find another solution, or things get messy." The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats before the warehouse's southern wall exploded inward. Debris scattered across the floor as a familiar black and green motorcycle crashed through. Its rider clad in sleek armor that seemed to shift and flow with each movement. The bike skidded to a halt between Ben and the smuggler, and its rider dismounted in one fluid motion. "Sorry I'm late," said Julie Yamamoto, her helmet reconfiguring into a collar around her neck, the work of Ship, the galvanic mechamorph that had bonded with her years ago. "Traffic was." Her words died as she took in Ben's transformed state. "Ben, what form is that?" "New one," Ben replied, attention still fixed on the smuggler. "Watch the deadman switch in her left hand." Julie assessed the situatio. In seconds, another skill she'd honed over years of occasional hero work. "Ship, scan the crate." Threat assessment. The living technology that comprised her armor extended a tendril, sensors passing over the container. A holographic readout appeared before Julie's eyes. "Unknown technology. Partial match to Ben. It's showing similarities to Omnitrix components." The smuggler's expression darkened. "Enough. I'm leaving with the merchandise." "I don't think so," Julie replied. Her armor flowed, forming a cannon-like appendage over her right arm. "That switch won't help if you're encased in containment foam before your finger moves a millimeter." Ben used the distraction to his advantage. This new crystal form seemed to perceive time differently. He could track the microsecond twitches of the smuggler's muscles, anticipating her movements. As she tensed to trigger the switch, Ben fired 3 crystal shards with surgical precision. The first knocked the device from her hand, the Econ pinned her sleeve to the crate behind her, and the third struck the ground at her feet, erupting into a crystalline structure that immobilized her legs. "Ship, secure the device," Julie commanded. The portion of her armor detached, flowing across the floor to envelop the deadman switch in protective containment. "No." The smuggler struggled against her crystalline restraints. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." Quote. Ben approached the mysterious crate, crimson crystal form reflecting in its metallic surface. "I think it's time we found out." The biometric lock posed no challenge to his new form. Somehow, the crystalline structure of his fingers reconfigured, creating the exact pattern needed to trigger the opening mechanism. The crate hissed as atmospheric seals disengaged, and the lid rose slowly on hydraulic arms. Inside, nestled in protective foam, sat what appeared to be an Omnitrix, but unlike any Ben had seen before. Instead of green, it pulsed with deep crimson energy. Its structure was more organic, with what looked like vein-like conduits running through semi-translucent components. "What is that?" Julie moved to stand beside him, ship's armor reconfiguring into a defensive formation. "Prototype," the smuggler said from her crystalline prison. The blood Omnitrix. Azimuth's first attempt, before he sanitized the technology for the version you received as a child. Ben studied the device, feeling an inexplicable resonance between it and his current transformed state. Why? Blood. Because it forms a true symbiotic bond with its user. It doesn't just rewrite DNA temporarily, it integrates with the host's biology. Enhances baseline abilities. Offers transformations that evolve based on the user's needs and experiences. Her amber eyes gleamed with something like reverence. It's the original vision, before Azimuth got scared of what he'd created. Julie's expression hardened. If Azimuth deemed it too dangerous. Azimuth is a coward who fears true advancement. The smuggler spat. The blood Omnitrix doesn't just transform its user, it evolves them. Ben felt the resonance growing stronger, his crystalline form responding to the device's presence. And the buyer, someone who appreciates its true potential. Someone who won't waste it playing galactic police officer. The smuggler's gaze burned with conviction. Someone who'll use it to change everything. Albedo. Ben guessed. Vilgax. Eon. The woman's laugh held genuine amusement. Think bigger, Tennyson. Much bigger. Before Ben could respond, the Ultimatrix on high. S wrist. Visible now as a component integrated into his crystalline form, emitted a piercing tone. The transformation began to destabilize, crimson energy flickering as the crystal structure started to liquefy. Ben. Julie moved forward as he staggered. The transformation was nothing like his usual experiences, not a quick flash of light and return to human form. Instead, the crystalline material seemed to be absorbed into his body. Nanites flowing beneath his skin in visible rivulets before disappearing. The process left him gasping on his knees, every nerve ending afire with sensation. When it finished, Ben was human again. But something had changed. Faint red lines traced beneath the skin of his arms, pulsing once before fading from view. The Ultimatrix looked normal, its green glow steady once more. What was that? Julie helped him to his feet, concern evident in her dark eyes. I don't know. Ben flexed his fingers, feeling strangely energized despite the painful transformation. I've never experienced anything like it. The smuggler was watching him with newfound interest. Fascinating. It's already begun. What's begun? Ben demanded, stepping toward her. Evolution. Her smile held secrets. You've been exposed to the blood Omnitrix's energy signature. Your standard Omnitrix is responding, trying to recalibrate. Fighting the changes. She nodded toward his wrist. But it's too late. The process has started. Julie's armor shifted, scanning Ben. I'm detecting anomalous energy patterns throughout your cellular structure. Whatever that transformation was, it left something behind. Ben was about to respond when the warehouse doors burst open. Plumber agents flooded in, led by Rook Blanco, his prototool raised and ready. Ben, Julie, the Ravanig, Onder surveyed the scene, captured smugglers, crated weapons, and the mysterious smaller container still open to reveal the blood Omnitrix. Are you unharmed? We're fine, Ben answered, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Standard weapons interdiction, plus. He gestured to the blood Omnitrix. Something unexpected. Rook approached the device cautiously. As that Omnitrix variant, Ben confirmed. Allegedly predates mine. Called the blood Omnitrix. I have never heard of such a device. Rook's brow furrowed, even in the classified plumber archives. That's because AZM.UTH buried all evidence of its existence, the smuggler interjected. Erased records, dismantled research facilities, scattered the components across 17 star systems. Yet here it is, reassembled, Julie noted. Someone went to extreme lengths to reconstruct it. Rook directed plumber agents to secure the smugglers and the weapons crates. We should contact Azimuth immediately. If this device is authentic. It's authentic, Ben said with unexpected certainty. Something inside him recognized the blood Omnitrix, resonated with it on a level he couldn't articulate. Then it should be secured at plumber headquarters until. No, the word emerged sharper than Ben intended. All eyes turned to him, including Julie's, surprise evident in her expression. Ben moderated his tone. If what she says is true and there's plumber corruption involved, we can't risk it. We need to secure it somewhere else until we can contact Azimuth directly. Rook hesitated, loyalty to protocol warring with trust in his partner. Where would you suggest? My lab, Julie offered. Ship can create a containment field that would block any tracking signals. Plus, I've been studying galvanic mechamorph technology for years. I might be able to analyze its components safely. The years had changed Julie as much as they had been. Gone was the tennis-obsessed teenager, replaced by a formidable scientist specializing in xenotechnology. Her partnership with Ship had evolved from pet owner to true symbiosis, her armor and abilities growing more sophisticated with each passing year. Though their romantic relationship had ended amicably during college, their friendship and occasional crime-fighting partnership remained strong. Agreed, Ben said, glancing at Rook. Standard report. Weapons seized, smugglers apprehended. No mention of the blood Omnitrix until we know who we can trust. Rook nodded reluctantly. Very well, but this is highly irregular, Ben. When has anything involving me been regular? Ben attempted a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. As plumber agents processed the scene, Julie secured the blood Omnitrix in a containment unit generated by Ship. The smuggler watched he proceedings with that same unsettling smile, even as she was led away in energy cuffs. This isn't over, Tennyson, she called over her shoulder. It's only beginning. The blood Omnitrix has found you, and it won't let go easily. Ben felt a chill despite the warehouse's stuffy air. His gaze met Julie's, finding concern mirrored there. My lab, she said quietly. We'll figure this out. Julie's laboratory occupied the top floor of a converted industrial building in Bellwood's Tech District. Unlike the sterile white environments of most research facilities, hers was a harmonious end of cutting-edge technology and living space, plants growing under specialized lights, comfortable seating areas interspersed among workstations, and large windows offering panoramic views of the city skyline. Ship moved freely here, sometimes integrated with various systems, other times assuming his compact pet form, bouncing excitedly between benches. Currently, he had formed a containment chamber in the center of the main lab, housing the blood Omnitrix within layered energy fields. Ben sat on an examination table, electrodes attached to his temples and chest while diagnostic equipment hummed softly. Julie studied readings on a holographic display, brow furrowed in concentration. Your cellular structure is definitely altered, she said, manipulating the display to zoom in on a molecular diagram. Nothing dangerous that I can detect, but there are nanites integrated throughout your system that weren't there before. Leftover from the transformation, Ben suggested. I don't think so. They appear to be self-replicating, but at a controlled rate. Julie brushed a strand of black hair behind her ear, a gesture Ben remembered from their teenage years. Some things never changed. They're establishing a network through your nervous system, concentrated around the Ultimatrix interface point. Ben flexed his hand, studying the familiar device on his wrist. Could explain the strange sensations I've been having. For weeks now, the Ultimatrix has felt different. Like it's trying to tell me something. You should have mentioned it sooner. Julie's tone held no accusation, only professional concern. These readings suggest the process began weeks ago, with gradual changes to your biology. Tonight's transformation accelerated everything, but what triggered it in the first place? I hadn't even encountered the blood Omnitrix until tonight. Julie turned toward the containment field where the crimson device pulsed with steady energy. I have a theory. Ship, display the quantum resonance scan. The galvanic mechamorph chirped affirmatively, and a new diagram appeared, complex waveforms representing energy signatures. This is your Ultimatrix. Julie pointed to a green pattern. And this, she indicated a red pattern that overlaid it with eerie similarity, is the blood Omnitrix. They're quantum entangled. Ben stared at the display. That's impossible. The Ultimatrix was created years after this prototype was supposedly dismantled. Impossible but evidently true. Julie manipulated the display again. According to these readings, they contain NTUM-linked components. They're essentially variations of the same core technology, connected across space-time. Which means what, exactly? It means, came a new voice from the laboratory entrance, that you're in significant danger. Ben Tennyson. Ben turned to see a figure stepping from swirling purple energy, Charmcaster, her silver hair gleaming in the laboratory lights, her magical satchel hanging at her hip. Unlike their teenage encounters, she wore no theatrical costume now, just practical dark clothing with intricate runic patterns woven into the fabric. Her expression was serious, lacking the manic energy or cruelty of their earlier confrontations. "Hope," Ben acknowledged, using her real name, a courtesy extended since their uneasy truce 3 years prior. Breaking and enter. Ing isn't covered by our non-aggression pact. This isn't a social call. She strode into the laboratory, eyeing the containment field and its contents with evident concern. I felt the awakening from 6 dimensions away. The blood Omnitrix isn't just technology, Ben. It's partially magical in nature, infused with energies Azimuth harvested from the heart of a dying reality. Julie stepped protectively closer to the containment field. "How do you know about it?" "Because my people helped create it." Charmcaster's violet eyes held ancient knowledge. "Before Legerdemain was sealed, before the wars that decimated my kind. We were partners with the Galvan. Magic and technology, woven together to create something revolutionary." Ben removed the diagnostic electrodes, standing to face Charmcaster directly. "And you never thought to mention this during our previous encounters. It was forbidden knowledge, even among my people." She approached the containment field cautiously. The blood Omnitrix was Azimuth's first attempt to create a universal translator of DNA, but he didn't understand the magical energies he was working with. The device developed a form of consciousness, a hunger for evolution and biological perfection. Quote, "You're saying it's alive?" Julie asked incredulously. "Not alive as we understand it. But not merely a tool, either." Charmcaster traced a symbol in the air, causing magical energy to flow around the containment field. "It's a catalyst, designed to find the perfect host and evolve them into something beyond their original species limitations." Ben felt the nanites beneath his skin responding to her magic, a strange tingling sensation across his nervous system. "And you think I'm this perfect host?" "The evidence suggests itself." Charmcaster nodded toward his wrist. "Your Ultimatrix is quantum linked to the original. You've worn Omnitrix technology longer than any being in the universe besides Azimuth himself. Your DNA has been rewritten thousands of times, making you uniquely adaptable." Her expression grew graver. "And now the process has begun. The transformation you experienced tonight was just the first step." "First step toward what?" Ben demanded. "Evolution, transcendence, or complete biological collapse." Charmcaster shrugged with false nonchalance. "The historical records aren't clear on the outcome. The test subjects never survived long enough to complete the process." Julie stepped between them. "Test subjects? You're talking about people being experimented on." "Not my people's doing," Charmcaster clarified. "After the partnership dissolved, Azimuth continued alone. The failures are why he abandoned the blood Omnitrix design and created the more limited version you received as a child." Ben absorbed this information, pieces falling into place. "The smuggler said it forms a symbiotic bond with the user. That it doesn't just transform but evolves them." "Correct. The standard Omnitrix rewrites your DNA temporarily, giving you access to alien forms while maintaining your human baseline." Charmcaster's gaze was penetrating. "The blood Omnitrix does the opposite. It uses alien DNA to evolve your baseline form permanently, while still allowing transformations. Each time you use it, you become less human and more something else. Something new." Silence fell across the laboratory as the implications sank in. Ship chirped nervously, his form rippling with agitation as he maintained the containment field. "Can it be reversed?" Julie finally asked, scientists' mind focusing on solutions rather than problems. "Unknown," Charmcaster admitted, "but I know who might have answers." She turned to Ben. "We need to find Hex." "Your uncle?" Ben's eyebrows rose in surprise. "I thought he was in stasis lockup after the Chronosepian incident." Quote, "He was released 6 months ago. Rehabilitated, supposedly." Charmcaster's tone suggested skepticism. "But regardless of his moral alignment, he possesses no edge of the original Blood Omnitrix project that we need. He was there, working alongside Azimuth in the early days." Ben exchanged glances with Julie. Trust had never come easily with Charmcaster, even after their temporary alliances over the years. "Why help me?" he asked directly. "We're not exactly friends." Charmcaster's expression remained unreadable. "The blood Omnitrix doesn't just affect its user, Ben. If the process completes, If it fully awakens, it will send out a quantum signal to all similar technology across the multiverse. Every Omnitrix variant in every reality will activate its evolutionary protocols. Her eyes met his with unexpected intensity. Including the device that ended my world. You never mentioned how Legerdemain fell, Julie said softly. Because the full truth was too dangerous to share. Charmcaster's composure cracked slightly, ancient grief visible for a moment. An Omnitrix variant, in the hands of a conqueror from another dimension. When it evolved him, the power surge destroyed everything, collapsed an entire magical realm into a singularity. She steadied herself. I won't let that happen to this reality. The laboratory fell silent again, broken only by the soft hum of equipment and the distant sounds of the city below. Ben studied Charmcaster's face, searching for deception but finding only resolved determination. All right, he decided, we find Hex, but Julie comes with us, and the blood Omnitrix stays secured here. The device needs to come with us, Charmcaster countered. Its proximity to you is actually stabilizing the nanites in your system. Separation could accelerate the negative effects. Julie frowned. That contradicts basic containment protocols. This isn't a standard technological threat, Charmcaster interrupted. It's a techno-magical symbiotic catalyst with quantum entanglement properties. Standard protocols are useless. Ben felt a familiar sensation building beneath his skin, the nanites responding to his elevated heart rate and the proximity of the blood Omnitrix. Faint crimson lines traced across the back of his hand before fading again. She's right, he said quietly. I can feel it, responding. Like it's part of me already. Quote. Julie's expression softened with concern. Ben, ship can maintain a mobile containment field, he continued, decision made. We take it with us, find Hex, and get answers. Then we contact Azimuth and make him fix this mess he created. Charmcaster nodded, satisfied. Hex was last seen in the ruins of Los Soledad. The old military base has become a nexus of temporal energy since the Chronosapian incident, perfect for someone researching forbidden magical theory. We should leave immediately, Julie said, already directing ship to reconfigure the containment field for transport. Ben's condition could deteriorate rapidly if these nanites continue replicating. Ben watched as preparations were made, a strange calm settling over him despite the circumstances. The blood Omnitrix pulsed in its containment field, its rhythm somehow synchronizing with his heartbeat. Whatever was happening to him had been set in motion weeks ago, perhaps from the moment he first received the original Omnitrix as a child. Evolution, transcendence, or complete biological collapse, as Julie and Charmcaster discussed the technical aspects of transporting the device safely. Ben gazed out the laboratory window at the Bellwood skyline. The city he'd protected since childhood sprawled before him, unaware of the danger taking root within its defender. I won't let you down, he whispered. A promise to the city and to himself. Within his veins, nanites continued their work, preparing him for a transformation unlike any he had experienced before. The blood Omnitrix had found its perfect host, and the process of evolution had only just begun. The desert surrounding Los Soledad remained as desolate as Ben remembered, endless sand dunes punctuated by scrub brush and the occasional cactus. Shimmering under the merciless afternoon sun. The abandoned military base itself had changed dramatically, however. Once merely dilapidated buildings behind chain-link fence, it now existed in a state of temporal flux, structures appearing and disappearing as different timelines overlapped and separated like oil on water. Ben navigated their vehicle, a modified plumber transport with enhanced shielding, through the unstable terrain, following a path only he could see. His connection to the blood Omnitrix had continued strengthening during their journey, granting him perception beyond normal human senses. Time streams appeared as colorful ribbons in his vision, weaving through the physical landscape. Take the next divergence point, Charmcaster instructed from the passenger seat. Consulting a small magical artifact that resembled a compass with multiple needles. Hex's sanctuary exists between moments. We need to catch the location when our timeline intersects with his. Julie occupied the rear compartment with ship, maintaining the containment field around the blood Omnitrix while monitoring Ben's biological readings. Your core temperature is elevated again, she reported. Nanite activity increasing in response to the temporal anomalies. I feel it, Ben acknowledged, hands steady on the controls despite the strange sensations coursing through his system. His vision occasionally flickered between normal perception and something else, layers of reality superimposed like transparent sheets. It's like I can see time itself bending around us. The blood Omnitrix is accelerating your evolutionary process in response to environmental stressors, Charmcaster explained, adjusting her artifact as its needles spun wildly. It's preparing you to survive in this temporal flux zone. By changing my DNA. Ben's voice remained calm despite the implications. By optimizing it, Charmcaster corrected. The fundamental difference between this device and your standard Omnitrix. One transforms temporarily, the other evolves permanently. The transport vehicle shuddered as they passed through a temporal boundary. Colors inverted momentarily before normalizing. And the landscape ahead shifted, the military base appearing whole and undamaged, as it might have looked 50 years earlier. There, Charmcaster pointed to a structure that hadn't been visible moments before. The Chronology Laboratory. That's where we'll find Hex. Ben parked the vehicle behind a dune, concealing it from casual observation. Any warnings I should know about before we approach? Magical defenses, temporal traps. Certainly both, Charmcaster replied with a hint of professional admiration. But nothing we can't handle. Hex may be powerful, but subtlety was never his strength. Julie joined them at the front of the vehicle, ship flowing around her body to form protective armor. The containment unit housing the blood Omnitrix hovered beside her, maintained by a portion of ship's biomass. Readings are stable for now, she reported. But I'm detecting increasing quantum fluctuations from both the blood Omnitrix and Ben's Ultimatrix. They're resonating more strongly in this temporal field. Ben nodded, processing the information while scanning their surroundings. No visible guards or surveillance, but that meant little in a place where time itself was unstable. Direct approach, he decided. Charmcaster takes point for magical countermeasures. Julie, maintain distance with the containment field, close enough to keep my condition stable. Far enough to retreat if things go sideways. I'll handle Hex. You sound like you're expecting a fight, Julie observed. I'm expecting anything. Ben's expression remained focused, years of experience evident in his calm assessment. Hex has never been predictable, even when he's allegedly reformed. They approached the laboratory building, a low concrete structure with strange additions that seemed architecturally impossible. Angles that bent in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. Symbols glowed along its exterior walls, shifting and rearranging themselves continuously. Charmcaster raised her hands, magical energy flowing between her fingers as she analyzed the defenses. Basic temporal lock on the entrance, designed to trap visitors between seconds. She traced complex patterns in the air, countering the spell. Amateur work, honestly. Hex is getting sloppy. The door before them shimmered and solidified, becoming accessible. Ben reached for the handle, then hesitated as the Ultimatrix pulsed with sudden energy. Crimson light flickered beneath his skin, nanites responding to some unseen stimulus. Ben. Julie moved closer, concerned. Something's happening, he murmured, feeling the changes accelerating within his body. His perception shifted again. Beyond seeing time streams, he now sensed magical energies flowing through the structure, currents of power that had been invisible moments before. I can perceive the magical matrix supporting this building. It's beautiful. Charmcaster studied him with narrowed eyes. The blood Omnitrix is granting you mage sight, adapting your perceptual abilities to process magical energy. Is that dangerous? Julie asked. Everything about this situation is dangerous, Charmcaster replied bluntly. But useful, in this case. Ben, can you see any beings inside the structure? Ben focused, allowing his enhanced perception to extend through the building's walls. One humanoid figure in the central chamber, surrounded by temporal energy. It's Hex. His magical signature is distinctive. You recognize magical signatures now. Julie's eyebrows rose. Apparently, Ben replied, equally surprised by his new ability. Let's move before anything else changes. Quote, they entered the laboratory, finding themselves in a space that defied conventional physics. The interior was vastly larger than the exterior suggested, with multiple levels connected by staircases that twisted impossibly through dimensions. Equipment both technological and magical filled workstations, while temporal bubbles contained experiments frozen between moments of time. In the center of it all stood Hex, his back to them as he manipulated energy fields around what appeared to be a fragment of celestial material, a star shard, pulsing with internal light. He wore simpler attire than his former theatrical costume, dark robes with subtle runic embroidery, his staff leaning against a nearby console. "I wondered when you would arrive, nephew," he said without turning. "Though I admit, I didn't expect you to bring Tennyson and his technologist companion." "Uncle," Charmcaster acknowledged coldly. "We need information." Hex turned slowly, his tattooed face impassive as he surveyed the trio. His gaze lingered on Ben, noting the faint crimson energy occasionally visible beneath his skin. "The blood Omnitrix," he stated, recognition immediate. "You've found it. Or perhaps more accurately, it has found you." His eyes shifted to the containment field where the device pulsed. Azimuth's greatest mistake, returned from obscurity. "You know about it," Ben said. "Not a question. I helped create it." Hex moved away from his experiment, approaching them with measured steps. No hostility, only scientific curiosity. "Before Legerdemain fell, before Charmcaster was even born, I worked alongside Azimuth to merge magical principles with Galvan technology. The result was problematic. Problematic enough to experiment on living subjects until they died." Julie challenged, anger evident in her voice. Hex had the decency to look troubled by the accusation. The test subjects were volunteers, criminals facing execution who chose the experiments as an alternative. "But yes, the failures were numerous and unpleasant. We need to know how to stop the process," Charmcaster interjected. "Ben has been exposed. The nanites are replicating throughout his system." Hex's expression shifted to genuine concern. "How long since initial exposure?" "Full exposure. About 24 hours, Ben answered. "But there were preliminary symptoms for weeks before that." "Weeks?" Hex's eyebrows rose. "And you're still cogent. Still, yourself." "Should I not be?" The previous subjects began experiencing personality fragmentation within hours. Complete psychotic breaks within days. Hex studied Ben with renewed interest. "You're either remarkably resilient, or what?" Julie prompted when he trailed off. "Or the perfect candidate," Hex finished quietly. The host the blood Omnitrix was designed to find. Ben felt the nanites respond to those words, a surge of activity sending crimson energy visibly coursing through his veins before subsiding again. "I don't want to evolve into whatever this thing has planned. I want it removed." Hex shook his head slowly. "Removal is impossible at this stage. The nanites have integrated with your cellular structure, your nervous system. Extracting them would kill you instantly." "Then how do we stop the process?" Charmcaster demanded. "We don't." Hex returned to his workstation, retrieving an ancient tome bound in material that seemed to shift between leather and metal. "The process cannot be halted once initiated, but it can be directed. Controlled." He opened the book, to reveal diagrams that Ben could somehow read despite being written in an alien language, another new ability granted by the nanites. "The blood Omnitrix seeks evolutionary perfection through adaptive response to environmental challenges," Hex explained, indicating complex formulas. "Each transformation, each stressor, guides the evolutionary path. The subject's experiences determine what they become. So Ben's choices matter," Julie concluded, scientific mind grasping the implications quickly. "The aliens he transforms into, the situations he faces, they're programming his evolution." "Precisely." Hex turned to Ben directly. "You must be selective about your transformations until the process stabilizes. Each form you take will contribute characteristics to your evolving baseline. Choose poorly, and you could become a monster. Choose wisely." "And what?" Ben asked. "I become some kind of ultimate life form." "You become whatever you need to be," Hex replied cryptically. "The blow, OD Omnitrix doesn't have a predetermined outcome. It adapts to its host's needs, challenges, and internal nature." A temporal fluctuation rippled through the laboratory, causing equipment to shift positions momentarily before returning to normal. Ben felt the disturbance on a fundamental level, his enhanced perception registering changes in the timestream that others couldn't detect. "Time is becoming unstable," he noted. "Something's approaching." Hex moved swiftly to a monitoring station, checking readings with growing alarm. Chronosapian energy signatures, multiple sources converging on this location. "Time travelers?" Julie asked, ship's armor reconfiguring into a more defensive formation around her. Time enforcers, Hex corrected grimly. The blood Omnitrix's activation has created a temporal beacon. It's drawing attention across the dimensional spectrum. Ben's Ultimatrix pulsed in response to the threat, but before he could activate it, Charmcaster grabbed his wrist. Don't transform, she warned. Not unless absolutely necessary. Each transformation accelerates the evolutionary process. We need to move, Hex stated, gathering several artifacts and books with quick efficiency. This location is compromised. There's a temporal sanctuary 2 miles north. We can regroup there. As if in response to his words, the laboratory's exterior wall exploded inward, debris flying across the room as 3 mechanical humanoid figures entered. They resembled clockwork, one of Ben's time-manipulating transformations, but more angular, with weapon systems integrated into their bodies. Chronosapian hunter units, Hex identified, staff materializing in his hand, designed to eliminate temporal anomalies. Like the blood Omnitrix, Ben concluded, positioning himself protectively near the containment field. The lead hunter unit scanned the room, its gaze fixing on the blood Omnitrix. When it spoke, its voice echoed with mechanical precision. Prohibited technology detected. Containment protocol initiated. Surrender the temporal catalyst immediately. Not happening, Ben replied, years of facing alien threats evident in his confident stance. The hunter units raised their arms in unison. Temporal energy building in their weapons. Julie reacted first, ship's armor generating energy shields as she moved to protect the containment field. Charmcaster and Hex simultaneously cast protective spells. Magical barriers forming layers of defense. Ben found himself facing a difficult choice: transform and accelerate his condition, or fight as a human against temporal enforcers. The decision was made when the nearest hunter fired, its beam cutting through both magical and technological shields with frightening ease. The Ultimatrix responded to his mental command faster than ever before, the transformation process initiating with a flash of green light tinged with crimson. But instead of clockwork as he'd intended, a strategic counter to temporal opponents, Ben felt the nanites guiding the transformation into something new. When the light faded, he stood as a hybrid form, part chronosapian, part crystalline entity like his previous transformation. Clockwork, temporal manipulation abilities combined with the resilient structure of the crimson crystal, creating something uniquely suited to the current threat. Interesting choice, Hex remarked, maintaining his magical barrier. Ben didn't waste time responding. He felt the temporal energy flowing through and around him, instinctively understanding how to manipulate it. With a gesture, he created a localized time field that slowed the hunter units to a fraction of their normal speed. Julie, secure the blood Omnitrix, he ordered, voice resonating with mechanical and crystalline harmonics. Charmcaster, Hex, create a temporal displacement corridor to the sanctuary. Working in concert, the sorceress and her uncle channeled magical energy through their respective artifacts, tearing a pathway through the timestream itself. Julie maneuvered the containment field toward the opening, ship extending protective tendrils around it. The hunter units fought against Ben's temporal manipulation, IR systems adapting to counter his abilities. One broke free, charging toward the blood Omnitrix with single-minded purpose. Ben intercepted it, crystalline structure hardening as he engaged in direct combat. Each blow he struck contained concentrated temporal energy, disrupting the hunter's chronological stability. Ben, we're ready, Julie called from the temporal corridor. We can't hold it open much longer. Fighting while maintaining the time field taxed even his enhanced abilities. Ben delivered a final devastating blow to his opponent, shattering its mechanical form into components frozen at different points in time. The remaining hunters continued their approach, temporal weapons recalibrating to target him specifically. Ben retreated toward the corridor, feeling the strain of maintaining this new hybrid form. The nanites were working overtime, integrating chronosapian abilities into his evolving baseline, a process he could actually perceive happening within his cellular structure. As he passed through the temporal corridor alongside his allies, Ben caught a glimpse of something unexpected. Reflections of himself in the fractured timestream, potential futures branching outward from this moment. In some, he appeared fully human. In others, something far different, evolved, transformed, transcended. The corridor collapsed behind them as they emerged at their destination. On, a small structure nestled among rock formations, somehow existing slightly out of phase with normal reality. The sanctuary, as Hex had called it. The transformation reversed itself, returning Ben to human form with another flash of light. He staggered, the evolutionary changes more pronounced now, faint crystalline structures visible beneath the skin of his arms, pulsing with internal energy. The process is accelerating, Hex observed as they secured the sanctuary. That transformation integrated Chronosapian DNA into your evolutionary matrix. Is that good or bad? Ben asked, examining the changes to his body with a scientist's detachment despite the personal nature of the situation. Depends on your perspective, Hex replied. Chronosapians are extraordinarily long-lived, with perception that spans temporal dimensions. Those are useful adaptations for survival. Julie approached with a scanner, ship extending sensors to analyze Ben's condition. The nanite concentration has increased by 30%. They're building new structures throughout your nervous system and brain tissue. Which explains the enhanced perception, Charmcaster added, securing magical wards around the sanctuary's perimeter. You're beginning to perceive reality as the blood Omnitrix does, across multiple dimensions and time streams. Ben absorbed this information with remarkable calm. So basically, I'm turning into something that isn't human anymore. You haven't been fully human since you were 10 years old, Ben, Hex pointed out. Every transformation, every alien DNA sample integrate, ed temporarily by the original Omnitrix, they all left microscopic changes behind. The blood Omnitrix is simply completing a process that began long ago. The implications of that statement hung in the air as Ben moved to the sanctuary's single window, gazing out at the desert landscape where temporal distortions rippled like heat waves. In the distance, he could see the hunter units regrouping, scanning for their location. They'll find us eventually, he said. We need a more permanent solution than hiding. Agreed, Hex replied, consulting one of the books he'd brought from the laboratory. The blood Omnitrix must be stabilized, brought into balance with your evolving biology. Once the integration is complete, its temporal signature will normalize. Integration. Julie looked alarmed. You're suggesting Ben should actually use the blood Omnitrix rather than containing it. It's already using him, Hex said simply. The containment field merely delays the inevitable. The Qua-NTUM entanglement between the devices cannot be severed, they must be unified. Ben turned from the window, decision forming in his mind. How do we do it? Ben, wait, Julie interjected. We should contact Azimuth first. Get his perspective before taking such a drastic step. Azimuth abandoned this technology for a reason, Charmcaster reminded them. He'll advocate for its destruction, even at the cost of Ben's life. You don't know that, Julie argued. I know Azimuth, Ben said quietly. He thinks in terms of universal consequences, not individual lives. Even mine. He approached the containment field, studying the pulsing crimson device within. And he might be right. If this thing is as dangerous as everyone says, maybe it should be destroyed, regardless of what happens to me. Silence fell across the sanctuary as the others recognized the weight of his words, the hero's calculus that had defined Ben Tennyson's life since childhood. Always willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. There is another option, Hex said finally. One that Azimuth never considered because he lacked sufficient understanding of magical principles. All eyes turned to the sorcerer as he retrieved a small artifact from within his robes, a crystal that seemed to exist in negative space, drawing light inward rather than reflecting it. A soul forge, Charmcaster identified, surprise evident in her voice. Where did you get that? They were all destroyed in the Lekorian purge. I have my resources, Hex replied enigmatically. What matters is its function. The soul forge combined user and artifact on a fundamental level, allowing conscious control over the integration process. In plain English, Ben prompted, it would allow you to direct your own evolution, Hex explained. To maintain your essential self, your consciousness, your moral core, while the blood Omnitrix transforms your physical form. You would become its master rather than its vessel. Julie studied the artifact skeptically. That sounds too good to be true. Because it is, Charmcaster interjected. Soul forges are notoriously unpredictable. The binding process is excruciating, and failure means complete dissolution of the subject's consciousness. What she means, Hex clarified with a sharp look at his niece, is that there are risks. But compared to allowing the blood Omnitrix to guide your evolution randomly, or attempting to destroy it and likely killing yourself in the process. He let the implications hang in the air. Ben approached the Soul Forge, feeling an immediate resonance between it, the nanites in his system, and the blood Omnitrix in its containment field. 3 points of a triangle, connecting across dimensions. How soon would we need to do this? He asked. Immediately, Hex answered. The Hunter units are merely the first wave. Once word spreads that the blood Omnitrix has resurfaced and bonded with the wielder of the Ultimatrix. He shook his head grimly. Every power in the galaxy with interest in Omnitrix technology will converge on Earth. Some to study it, others to claim it, most to destroy it. Ben's gaze met Julie's, finding concern and understanding in equal measure. They had known each other too long, been through too much together, for anything less. It's your choice, she said softly. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. The weight of the decision pressed upon him, not just his own fate, but potentially that of everyone he cared about. If the blood Omnitrix truly could trigger evolutionary protocols in Omnitrix technology across the multiverse, the consequences of failure were unimaginable. Through the window, Ben could see temporal distortions increasing, reality itself becoming unstable as the Hunter units deployed more advanced technology in their search. Time was running out in the most literal sense. Let's do it, he decided. Prepare the Soul Forge. As Hex and Charmcaster began the necessary preparations, Jing arcane symbols around a central platform, Julie approached Ben privately. Are you sure about this? She asked, keeping her voice low. We've faced impossible odds before. We could find another way. Ben looked down at his arms, where crystal structures now visibly formed and dissolved beneath his skin in rhythmic patterns. I'm already changing, Julie. This way, at least I have a chance to control what I become. He managed a small smile. Besides, when have I ever turned down the chance to try a new transformation? This isn't like the others, she reminded him, genuine fear visible beneath her composed exterior. This is permanent, I know. Ben's expression sobered, but sometimes the right choice isn't the easy one. You taught me that, remember? Julie's eyes softened at T. He referenced to their shared history, the difficult decisions, the sacrifices both had made in service to something larger than themselves. Without another word, she reached out and took his hand, a stir of support that required no elaboration. Across the sanctuary, Charmcaster watched their interaction with an unreadable expression before returning to her preparations. The complex relationship between the three of them, former enemies, reluctant allies, potential friends, would only grow more complicated in the days ahead. Hex completed the ritual circle, placing the Soul Forge at its center. We're ready, he announced. Ben, you'll need to stand in the center. Julie, the containment field must be positioned at the north point of the compass. Charmcaster and I will channel the binding energies. As they took their positions, Ben felt a strange calm descend upon him. Whatever happened next would fundamentally change him, perhaps end him as he currently existed. Yet facing the unknown had been his life's work since that fateful summer day when a falling star had turned out to be an alien device. Before we begin, Hex said, his tone uncharacteristically solemn, you should understand what success means, Ben. The blood Omnitrix will become part of you in a way the Ultimatrix never was. Your consciousness will expand beyond human limitations. You will perceive reality differently, process information differently, perhaps even value different things. Are you saying I won't be me anymore? Ben asked directly. I'm saying you'll be more than you currently are, Hex clarified. Whether that version of you still values what Ben Tennyson values, that depends on the strength of your core self. Ben nodded, accepting the warning for what it was. I'm ready. The ritual began with Hex and Charmcaster chanting in an ancient language, magical energy flowing between them and into the Soul Forge. The crystal responded, negative space expanding outward, drawing energy from the surrounding environment. The blood Omnitrix pulsed within its containment field, resonating with the ritual's frequency. Ben felt the nanites throughout his body activating, responding to the magical energy saturating the air. Crimson light emanated from beneath his skin, no longer in brief flashes but as a continuous glow that illuminated his veins and nervous system from within. The soul forge rose from its position, hovering at the center of the ritual circle. Bands of energy extended from it, connecting to the blood Omnitrix and to Ben in a triangular formation. Where they touched his skin, Ben felt not pain but a strange sensation of expansion, as if his consciousness were being stretched beyond the confines of his physical form. "The binding has begun," Hex stated, maintaining his position in the ritual. "Ben, you must focus on your core self, the essential qualities that define you. Hold them in your mind as the integration proceeds." Ben closed his eyes, concentrating on what made him who he was. Not the Omnitrix or his alien heroes, but the underlying principles that had guided him through years of wielding immense power, responsibility, compassion, justice. The faces of those he protected, family, friends, strangers he would never meet but whose lives mattered nonetheless. The soul forge pulsed, and suddenly pain did come, searing through his nervous system as blood Omnitrix's containment field collapsed and the device itself shot across the room, attaching itself to his wrist opposite the Ultimatrix. The two devices pulsed in alternating rhythm, green and crimson, technology and magic. Science and soul. Ben's perception expanded exponentially. He could see the temporal distortions surrounding the sanctuary, feel the approach of the hunter units, perceive the quantum entanglement between dimensions. More than that, he could sense the possibilities branching outward from this moment, countless futures determined by choices not yet made. Through it all, he held onto his core self, even as knowledge and power threatened to overwhelm his human consciousness. The blood Omnitrix and Ultimatrix began to change, their structures flowing and reforming. As they synchronized at a quantum level, metal and crystal merged, technology and biology becoming indistinguishable as they integrated with Ben's evolving form. From outside his expanded perception, he dimly heard voices, Julie calling his name, Charmcaster and Hex continuing the ritual chant, the mechanical tones of approaching hunter units. They seemed distant, less immediate than the transformation occurring within his very being. The final stage of integration came with a burst of energy that radiated outward from Ben's position, temporarily nullifying the temporal distortions throughout the area. When it subsided, he stood transformed, not as an alien form, but as something both human and more. His body appeared mostly human at first glance, but closer inspection revealed subtle differences. His skin had a faint crystalline quality that shifted with his movements, catching light in impossible ways. Where the Ultimatrix and blood Omnitrix had been now existed a single device, neither wholly green nor crimson, but a harmonious blend that seemed to phase between colors depending on perspective. Most striking were his eyes, still green, but with luminous qualities that suggested perception beyond normal human capability. When he spoke, his voice carried the same harmonics as his transformed state, though more subtle. "I'm all right," he assured the others, who stared in a mixture of awe and concern. "It worked. I'm still me, just more." Julie approached cautiously, ship's sensors analyzing his new form. "Your biological readings are. I don't even have a baseline to compare them to. How do you feel?" "Connected," Ben answered, finding human language inadequate to describe his experience. "I can perceive the time stream, the magical currents Charmcaster and Hex manipulate. The quantum pathways between dimensions." He looked down at the merged device on his wrist. "And I understand the Omnitrix technology in ways Azimuth never intended users to comprehend." "The perfect host," Hex murmured, studying Ben with scientific curiosity. "The blood Omnitrix has completed its primary directive, creating an evolved being capable of wielding its full potential." Charmcaster's expression remained guarded. "We still don't know what that means for the multiverse. If other Omnitrix devices are affected." Ben raised his hand, the merged device glowing softly. "They won't be. I can control the quantum signal now, contain it within this reality, this timeline." His enhanced perception allowed him to visualize the connections, adjust them like a conductor directing an orchestra. "The evolutionary protocol remains active only in this device, only for me." As if to test his claim, the sanctuary's walls shuddered under sudden impact. The hunter units had found them. Temporal weapons beginning to destabilize the sanctuary's position in the time stream. "We have company," Julie noted unnecessarily, ship flowing around her to form combat armor. Ben stepped forward, the merged Omnitrix pulsing with energy. "Let me handle this." "Ben, wait," Charmcaster cautioned. "Your condition just stabilized. Another transformation is exactly what I need," Ben finished confidently. "This new form, my evolved baseline, is just the beginning." The Blood Omnitrix was designed to continue adaptation through transformation and challenge. He met her gaze with calm certainty. "I need to test its limits. And we need to escape. Two birds, one transformation." Before anyone could object further, Ben activated the merge device. The transformation sequence differed from his previous experiences. No flash of green light, but a rippling wave of energy that flowed outward from the device and across his body. His form shifted, not to a standard alien from the Omnitrix database, but to something uniquely suited to their current situation. Elements of clockwork merged with Diamond Head's crystalline structure and Big Chill's phasing abilities, creating a temporal manipulator that existed partially outside conventional physics. The form maintained certain humanoid characteristics, recognizably Ben despite the alien features. "Everyone stay close," his voice resonated with layered harmonics. "I'm going to phase us through the temporal barricade they've established." Hex gathered his artifacts while Charmcaster maintained defensive spells around the group. Julie moved to Ben's side, ship's armor adapting to the shifting temporal energies surrounding them. The sanctuary walls collapsed inward as the hunter units breached the defenses. They entered with weapons charged. Targeting systems locked on Ben's transformed state. "Temporal anomaly identified," the lead hunter announced. "Surrender for cataloging and containment." "Rain check," Ben replied, icing his hands as temporal energy gathered around the group. "We have evolution to attend to." With a pulse of power that rippled through multiple dimensions simultaneously, Ben phased their entire party out of the hunter units. Time stream, not teleporting, but shifting them milliseconds out of sync with conventional reality. To the hunters, they would appear to have vanished completely. As they moved through the temporal phase space between moments, Ben felt the merged Omnitrix adapting once more, integrating the experience into his evolutionary matrix. Each challenge, each transformation, each use of his abilities continued the process that the Blood Omnitrix had initiated. He was becoming something unprecedented, neither human nor alien, neither purely technological nor magical, but a synthesis of all these elements. The perfect wielder for the most powerful device in the multiverse. And as the desert landscape blurred around them, shifting toward their next destination, Ben 10. Wyson embraced the evolution with the same courage and determination that had defined his life as a hero. Whatever he was becoming, whatever challenges awaited, the core principles remained unchanged. Protect the innocent, fight for justice. Use power responsibly. Some things, it seemed, transcended even evolution itself. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Ancient Enemies. Morning light spilled through fractured windows of Kevin Levin's desert workshop, casting prismatic patterns across workbenches cluttered with alien technology. The converted aircraft hangar sat 20 miles outside Bellwood CIT. Y limits, far enough to avoid civilian casualties should any of Kevin's more volatile experiments go awry. Its corrugated metal walls bore scorch marks from past incidents, testament to the dangerous nature of the work conducted within. Ben stood motionless in the center of the main bay, suspended in a diagnostic field that hummed with quiet intensity. Kevin circled him slowly, osmosium-coated DS adjusting scanner settings with surprising delicacy for someone whose forearms resembled industrial machinery. "Never seen anything like this," Kevin muttered, his gruff voice carrying a note of professional fascination. "Your cellular structure's completely rewritten itself, but it's still recognizably you." He tapped a readout, frowning at the results. "Sort of." Julie watched from a bench where she'd been cataloging the previous day's events, ship curled protectively around her shoulders in his compact form. "Can you reverse it?" Kevin's laugh held no humor. "Reverse it? I'm not even sure what I'm looking at." He deactivated the scanner, stepping back to study Ben with narrowed eyes. "This goes beyond standard DNA manipulation. The nanites have integrated with every system in his body. They're part of him now." Ben stepped out of the diagnostic field, the merged Omnitrix pulsing softly on his wrist, neither fully green nor crimson, but oscillating between shades depending on the angle of observation. His appearance had stabilized overnight into something that could pass for human at casual glance, if one ignored the subtle crystalline quality to his skin and the occasionally luminous depth to his green eyes. "I told you it's permanent," he said, voice carrying that slight harmonic quality that had become his new normal. "The question isn't how to reverse it, but how to understand what I'm becoming." "And what exactly is that?" Gwen Tennyson asked from the hangar entrance, where she had just arrived with Charmcaster in tow. Unlike their teenage years, when Gwen had favored casual attire, she now dressed with the polished efficiency of someone balancing dual careers in magical studies and interplanetary diplomacy, tailored clothing with subtle runic embroidery. Hair pulled back in a practical style. Ben turned to his cousin with a faint smile. "That's what we're trying to figure out." Gwen approached, anodyne energy illuminating her hands as she conducted her own examination. Where Kevin's technology analyzed physical changes, her magical senses perceived the energetic transformations. "Your mana signature has completely changed," she observed, circling Ben much as Kevin had. "It's like looking at a familiar landscape that's been terraformed. The underlying structure remains, but everything built upon it is new." "Poetic," Kevin remarked dryly, returning to his workbench. "Accurate," Charmcaster countered, moving deeper into the hangar with practiced caution. Unlike Gwen's diplomatic attire, she wore practical dark clothing with integrated magical components, a warrior mage's garb. The blood Omnitrix doesn't just transform biology, it rewrites magical potential as well. Ben's inherent mana capacity has expanded exponentially. Ben flexed his fingers, watching as faint energy patterns rippled beneath his skin. "I can perceive magical energies now. See how they flow, interact with physical matter. And that doesn't concern you?" Gwen asked, the question directed at both Ben and Charmcaster. "Everything about this situation concerns me," Ben replied with unexpected candor. "But concern doesn't change reality. This is happening, Gwen. I can either fear it or master it." The hangar fell silent as the implications settled over the group. These were no longer children stumbling through adventures, but adults who understood the weight of power and its consequences. Ben's transformation represented something unprecedented, potentially wonderful, potentially catastrophic. Kevin broke the tension, tossing a hydro span into his toolbox with a metallic clang. "So what's the plan? Because those hunter units that attacked you at Los Soledad won't be the last to come looking for that thing." He nodded toward the merged Omnitrix. "We need information," Julie said, rising from her workbench. Hex provided basic knowledge about the blood Omnitrix's creation, but he admitted gaps in his understanding. "If we're going to help Ben navigate this evolution, we need to know more about its origins and purpose." "Azimuth," Gwen began, "isn't answering my calls," Ben interrupted. "I've tried every emergency channel." 8. Hurry's deliberately avoiding this situation, or something's preventing him from responding. Charmcaster moved to the center of the group, commanding attention without effort, a skill honed through years of leadership in magical realms. "There's another source of information. One that predates even Azimuth's involvement with the blood Omnitrix." All eyes turned to her expectantly. "The Archimage, a book of spells, contains references to an ancient partnership between Legerdemain sorcerers and Galvan scientists. The complete record was stored in the archives of Everett, which were destroyed when Legerdemain fell," Gwen noted. "Familiar with magical history, not destroyed," Charmcaster corrected. "Scattered. When the realm collapsed, the archives were shunted into pocket dimensions across the multiverse. I've spent years tracking fragments, reconstructing the knowledge. And you've found something related to the blood Omnitrix," Ben deduced. Charmcaster nodded, reaching into her satchel to retrieve a crystalline shard that pulsed with internal light. "This fragment contains coordinates to a sealed repository, one of the archive's annexes that survived intact. According to my research, it holds the original schematics for what eventually became the blood Omnitrix." "Why haven't you retrieved this information already?" Kevin asked suspiciously. "Because the repository is guarded by defenses I cannot breach alone," Charmcaster admitted, displaying rare humility. "It requires simultaneous magical and technological expertise, plus." Her eyes shifted to Ben. "The genetic signature of someone who has wielded Omnitrix technology. The Legerdemain sorcerers who created these defenses anticipated attempts to weaponize their research. Ben exchanged glances with Julie, then Gwen. Unspoken understanding passed between them, the foundation of trust built through years of shared dangers. "Where is this repository?" he asked. "A dimensional pocket accessible through the nexus points," Charmcaster replied. "The nearest entrance point is beneath the mountain range 50 miles north of here." Kevin sighed dramatically, already moving toward his equipment storage. "So we're going dimension hopping again. Great. Let me grab the anti-magic containment gear." "That won't work this time," Charmcaster warned. "Conventional anti-magic technology disrupts the harmonic resonance needed to access the nexus points. We'll need something more sophisticated." Julie straightened, Ship perking up on her shoulder. "Ship can generate adaptive containment fields that work with magical energies rather than against them. We've been developing the technology for cross-dimensional exploration." "Perfect," Ben decided, the merged Omnitrix pulsing as if in agreement. "Kevin, we'll need transportation suitable for mountain terrain. Gwen, prepare whatever magical protection you can that won't interfere with the Nexus access. Julie and Ship will handle technological containment. Charmcaster guides us to the repository." He glanced at each person in turn, leadership coming naturally despite his transformed state. "We move in 3 hours." As the group dispersed to prepare, Charmcaster lingered, studying Ben with an intensity that would have made him uncomfortable in earlier years. Now, with enhanced perception, he could sense the complex emotions behind her scrutiny: scientific curiosity, cautious respect, and something else, concern, perhaps. "Your adaptation is progressing faster than I anticipated," she observed quietly. "The merged Omnitrix is accelerating evolutionary changes based on environmental stimuli." Ben nodded, glancing down at the device. "I can feel it happening. Every new experience, every challenge, it's like the nanites are learning, integrating useful adaptations into my baseline form. And your consciousness, your sense of self." The question carried weight beyond casual inquiry. Ben considered it carefully, examining his own thought, HTS and motivations with newfound clarity. "I'm still me," he answered finally. "But my perspective has expanded. I perceive connections I couldn't before, between magic and technology, between different dimensions, between choices and their cascading consequences across timelines." Charmcaster's expression remained guarded. "Be careful, Tennyson. Evolution doesn't just change what you are, it eventually changes what you want. What you value." "Speaking from experience?" Ben asked, genuine curiosity replacing what might once have been defensiveness. A shadow crossed her features. "My PLE evolved through generations of immersion in magical energies. Each progressive generation became more powerful, and more disconnected from their original nature. What began as human curiosity became obsession with power. Then transcendence of physical form entirely." Her gaze hardened. "Evolution without ethical anchors leads to places you don't want to go." Before Ben could respond, she turned away, moving to join Gwen in preparing magical components for their expedition. The warning lingered in her wake, a counterpoint to the exhilarating potential Ben felt within his changing form. Across the hangar, Julie approached, Ship transforming into a scanning device in her hands. "Everything okay? Just getting some perspective on evolutionary consequences," Ben replied, offering a smile that almost reached his eyes. "Ready for another adventure?" Julie's answering smile held both warmth and determination. "With you, always. Though I'm still getting used to the new look. That makes 2 of us." Ben glanced down at his hands, where crystal structures occasionally formed and dissolved beneath his skin. "I keep expecting to wake up normal again." "Normal is overrated," Julie quipped, though her expression softened. "Besides, you were never exactly normal, even before all this. Child superhero with alien transformation powers. Not exactly average." The gentle teasing ease something in Ben's chest, a tension he hadn't realized he was carrying. Whatever changes the blood Omnitrix brought, Julie still saw him, the person beneath the transformation. That grounding force might prove essential in the days ahead. "We should help with preparations," he said, refocusing on the immediate task. Julie nodded, but hesitated before turning away. "Ben, no matter what happens, what you become, you're not facing it alone. Remember that." The simple declaration carried profound weight, anchoring him amid the evolutionary currents reshaping his existence. Ben watched her walk away, struck by how their relationship had evolved over the years, from teenage romance to something more complex and enduring. Not quite lovers anymore, not merely friends, but partners who had witnessed each other's growth through extraordinary circumstances. As the team prepared for their expedition, Ben found himself contemplating Charmcaster's warning alongside Julie's reassurance. Evolution changed what you are, what you want, what you value, but perhaps some connections remained constant, transcending even fundamental transformation. He would need those anchors in the days ahead, as the Blood Omnitrix continued its work, remaking him into something unprecedented, something that had never existed before in any universe. The question remained, what would that something become? Mountains loomed against the afternoon sky, ancient stone worn smooth by millennia of wind and rain. Their expedition had left the desert floor behind 2 hours earlier, ascending narrow switchback rails in Kevin's modified all-terrain vehicle. Despite its imposing exterior, reinforced chassis, oversized wheels with adaptive traction systems, weapons arrays concealed beneath armor plating, the interior offered surprising comfort, with shock absorption technology nullifying the rugged terrain's impact. Ben sat in the forward compartment beside Kevin, monitoring sensor readings as they approached the coordinates Charmcaster had provided. The merged Omnitrix pulsed with increasing frequency, responding to proximity to the nexus point. Energy signatures intensifying, Ben reported, voice CA-reing that subtle harmonic quality that still occasionally startled his companions. We're close. In the rear compartment, Gwen and Charmcaster worked in tandem, preparing the magical components necessary to access the dimensional gateway. Despite their complicated history, the two magic users had developed a professional respect over the years, their distinct approaches to arcane arts complementing rather than conflicting. The harmonic convergence is nearly aligned, Gwen noted, magical energy flowing between her hands as she shaped a complex spell matrix. We'll have a 14-minute window once the nexus point becomes accessible. 14 minutes to locate and retrieve information from an ancient repository, Charmcaster added, infusing crystalline foci with preparatory enchantments. Time management will be essential. Julie completed final adjustments to her armor, ship flowing across her form in patterns optimized for cross-dimensional travel. Unlike conventional battle configurations, this formation prioritized sensors and adaptive shielding over offensive capabilities. Ship's containment fields are calibrated for the energy signatures Charmcaster provided, she confirmed. We should be able to stabilize the nexus point long enough to complete extraction. Kevin guided the vehicle around a final bend, bringing them into a sheltered valley nestled between towering peaks. The natural bowl formation captured afternoon sunlight, illuminating a landscape that appeared mundane at first glance. Scrubby vegetation, scattered boulders, a small spring-fed pool at the valley's center. This is it? Kevin asked skeptically, engaging the vehicle's defensive systems as they came to a stop. Doesn't look like much. Dimensional gateways rarely advertise themselves, Charmcaster replied dryly. Gathering her equipment, the nexus point exists slightly out of phase with our reality, perceivable only under specific conditions. Ben stepped from the vehicle, the merged Omnitrix reacting strongly now, pulses of energy visible beneath his skin as nanites responded to proximity to the nexus. His enhanced perception detected subtle distortions in the air around the spring. Reality folding inward upon itself like origami crafted from space-time. It's there, he confirmed, pointing toward the pool. Not visible to conventional sight, but definitely present. He team deployed with practiced efficiency, establishing a perimeter around the spring while Gwen and Charmcaster prepared the ritual necessary to access the nexus point. Kevin absorbed material from a piece of advanced alien alloy he carried, transforming his body into living metal with enhanced durability and strength, a precaution against potential guardians or defensive systems. Julie positioned herself at the strategic midpoint between the magical practitioners and the spring, ship's adaptive systems ready to generate containment fields at a moment's notice. Ben remained near her, the merged Omnitrix calibrating itself to the dimensional frequencies emanating from the hidden gateway. Beginning the alignment sequence, Gwen announced, anodyne energy flowing from her hands to create a complex three-dimensional matrix in the air above the spring. The magical construct resembled a geometric model of interlocked dimensions, each facet representing a different reality connected through the nexus. Charmcaster complemented Gwen's work, infusing the matrix with energies drawn from her crystalline foci. Where Gwen's magic manifested as structured patterns, Charmcaster's approached the arcane as fluid. Adaptable force, the difference between architecture and water. Harmonic resonance established, she reported, silver hair lifting slightly as magical currents intensified around them. Nexus manifestation in 30 seconds. Ben felt the dimensional barriers thinning, his evolved senses perceiving ripples across reality's surface. The merged Omnitrix responded automatically, adaptive nanites flowing beneath his skin to prepare his biology for cross-dimensional travel. The spring's surface began to shimmer, water rising in defiance of gravity to form a vertical column. Chi twisted impossibly through angles that hurt conventional minds to observe. Within the liquid column, spaces opened, windows into other realities, flashing by too quickly to comprehend. Stabilization field now, Gwen instructed sharply. Julie responded instantly, ship extending tendrils of living technology that encircled the manifesting portal. The galvanic mechamorph's adaptive systems matched the portal's frequencies, preventing the chaotic cascade of dimensional windows from collapsing back into normal spacetime. Portal stabilized, Julie confirmed, holding at 78% integrity. Charmcaster approached the portal, retrieving the archive fragment from her satchel. The crystalline shard pulsed with increasing intensity as it neared the dimensional gateway, responding to proximity to its origin point. The repository coordinates are encoded in this fragment, she explained, holding the shard toward the portal. Once inserted, it will attune the nexus to the specific pocket dimension we seek. Ben stepped forward, the merged Omnitrix glowing brightly now. Wait, something's wrong. Before he could elaborate, the portal's energy signature shifted abruptly. Orderly progression of dimensional windows accelerated, spinning wildly as external force disrupted the carefully established harmonic resonance. Ship chirped in alarm, tendrils straining to maintie. End the stabilization field as the portal's integrity began to fluctuate. We're being jammed, Julie reported, diagnostic readouts flashing across her visor. Something's interfering with the dimensional frequencies. Gwen reinforced her magical matrix, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort. It's coming from inside the nexus. Something knows we're trying to access the repository. The archive fragment in Charmcaster's hand suddenly shattered, fragments dissolving into motes of light that spiraled into the destabilizing portal. She jerked back, blood welling from small cuts on her palm where the shard had broken. No, she exclaimed, genuine distress breaking through her composed exterior. Years of searching, gone in an instant. Kevin moved to defensive position, metal form G, gleaming in the strange light emanating from the portal. Whatever's coming through, it's big. Energy readings are off the charts. Ben felt the merged Omnitrix responding to the threat, nanites excel. Irradiating through his system as evolutionary protocols activated. His perception expanded further, allowing him to see through the chaotic dimensional fluctuations to their source, a presence moving toward them through the nexus. Ancient and purposeful, everyone back, he ordered, stepping between his team and the portal. Something's coming through, and it's specifically targeting the archive fragment. The portal's surface bulged outward as if something massive pressed against it from the other side. Ship's containment field strained to breaking point, forcing Julie to divert additional power to maintain stability. I can't hold it much longer, she warned. Whatever's coming is too powerful for standard containment protocols. Ben made a split-second decision, raising the merged Omnitrix. Then we meet it on equal terms. The transformation sequence initiated with that now familiar ripple of energy rather than the flash of light that had characterized his earlier transformations. His form shifted, adaptive nanites restructuring his biology based on environmental threat assessment. The result combined elements of Chromastone's energy absorption, feedback's conductive capabilities, and something entirely new, a configuration specifically designed to interact with dimensional gateways. His transformed state stood 7 feet tall, body composed of crystalline structures that channeled energy through circuit-like pathways. Unlike previous alien forms, this one retained recognizable features from his human appearance, facial structure, body proportions, while incorporating Alien elements as evolutionary adaptations rather than wholesale replacement. Ben. Gwen's voice carried concern tinged with scientific fascination. Still me, he confirmed, voice resonating with harmonic overtones that matched the portal's frequency, but adapted to handle dimensional incursions. He approached the destabilizing portal, hands outstretched. Where the energy cascades would have harmed conventional biology, Ben's evolved form absorbed and redirected the chaotic forces, establishing a new equilibrium that temporarily stabilized the gateway. I can sense what's coming, he reported. Information flowing through his enhanced consciousness. Not physical. At least, not entirely. A construct. Guardian entity programmed to protect the archive from unauthorized access. Can you communicate with it? Julie asked. Ship's containment field reconfiguring to support Ben's efforts rather than attempting to control the portal independently. I'm trying, but the portal erupted outward before he could finish. Dimensional energy coalescing into a towering figure that emerged into their reality with thunderous force. The Guardian entity stood 12 feet tall, its form a hefting amalgamation of technological components and magical constructs, living armor surrounding a core of pure dimensional energy. Its face consisted of a featureless mask inscribed with symbols similar to those found in the Archimata Book of Spells, while its limbs terminated in appendages that transformed continuously between weapons and analytical tools. Unauthorized access detected, it announced. Voice reverberating across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Archive security protocols initiated. Ben maintained his position between the Guardian and his team, evolved foe. Still channeling energy from the dimensional rift behind the entity. We seek information only. No threat to the archive or its contents. The Guardian's mask shifted, symbols rearranging as it analyzed Ben's form. Anomalous entity detected. Omnitrix signature confirmed. Blood variant present. Its posture changed subtly, weapon appendages transforming into more specialized scanning equipment. Explain presence. The blood Omnitrix has activated and bonded, Ben replied, sensing that truth would serve better than deception with this entity. We seek the original schematics to understand its purpose and function. The Guardian processed this information, dimensional energy fluctuating around its core. Blood Omnitrix activation sequence incomplete. Host integration suboptimal. Purpose. Information acquisition. It paused. Mask symbols shifting again. Access denied. Security protocols mandate elimination of incomplete integration scenarios. Without further warning, the Guardian attacked. Not with conventional weapons, but with dimensional energy that bypassed physical defenses entirely. The assault targeted the merged Omnitrix directly, attempting to disrupt the quantum bonds between device and host. Ben staggered under the assault, evolutionary protocols responding instantly to the new threat. His form adapted further, crystalline structure reconfiguring to channel and disperse the dimensional energy rather than absorb it directly. It's trying to sever his connection to the Omnitrix. Gwen shouted, magical shields forming around the team as secondary energy discharges radiated from the conflict. Kevin moved with surprising speed for his metallic form, positioning himself to intercept a tendril of dimensional energy aimed at Charmcaster. Why is it specifically targeting you two? He demanded, absorbing the impact with a grunt of pain. Because we represent what it was programmed to prevent, Charmcaster answered, magical energy gathering around her hands as she prepared defensive spells. The merger of Omnitrix technology with magical beings. That's what the original Blood Omnitrix project attempted, and apparently failed to achieve properly. Julie. Directed ship to reinforce Ben's position, the galvanic mechamorph extending protective tendrils that absorbed and redistributed dimensional energy. Its attacks are pattern-based, she observed, analytical mind working despite the chaos. There's logic to the assault, it's testing Ben's defenses systematically. Ben recognized the same pattern, evolutionary consciousness processing combat data at accelerated rates. Each attack from the Guardian provided information about its capabilities and limitations, information the nanites integrated immediately into his adaptive form. It's an automated system, he realized aloud. Deflecting another energy tendril, advanced, but not truly sentient. It follows programmed responses to specific triggers. So we need to present a trigger it wasn't programmed to counter, Gwen concluded. Sharing her cousin's quick strategic thinking despite their different methodologies. Ben nodded, A plan forming. Exactly. Charmcaster. The archive fragment. Even shattered. Does anything remain of its access protocols? Charmcaster glanced at her injured palm, where motes of crystalline light still clung to the wounds. Residual energy signatures, perhaps. But not enough to reconfigure the portal. Not trying to reconfigure it, Ben replied, dodging another dimensional attack with fluid grace. Trying to authenticate ourselves. Julie, can ship isolate? The energy signature from Charmcaster's injuries. Understanding dawned in Julie's expression. Molecular sampling. Yes, but I'll need her close to the scanners. As the team adjusted positions, Ben engaged the Guardian directly, no longer merely defending but actively countering its attacks with precisely calibrated energy projections of his own. Each exchange revealed more about the entity's programming, allowing him to predict and interrupt its attack patterns with increasing effectiveness. The Guardian operates on recognition protocols, he explained between defensive maneuvers. I didn't just destroy the archive fragment, it absorbed its authentication signature. If we can replicate that signature from the residual energy in Charmcaster's wounds, we can potentially register as authorized users, Gwen finished. Magical shields adapting to channel energy rather than simply block it, a more efficient approach against dimensional attacks. Kevin provided physical cover as July, IE and Ship conducted rapid analysis of the energy signatures clinging to Charmcaster's injured hand. The galvanic mechamorph's advanced scanning systems worked at nanoscopic levels, isolating the Uni-K frequency pattern that had been encoded in the now-destroyed archive fragment. Got it, Julie announced after 10 seconds. Ship can replicate the authentication signature, but we'll need a direct connection to the Guardian's recognition systems. Ben absorbed this information while maintaining combat with the increasingly aggressive entity. Its attacks had become more concentrated, focusing exclusively on disrupting his connection to the merged Omnitrix, the perceived primary threat from its programmed perspective. I'll create an opening, he decided. When I give the signal, Julie, have Ship transmit the authentication directly into its core matrix. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Ben initiated a new adaptive sequence. His crystalline form shimmered, temporarily phasing Edwin dimensional states in a manner similar to Ghost Freak's intangibility but with greater precision. The Guardian's attacks passed through his partially phased form, creating momentary confusion in its targeting systems. Ben used that confusion to close distance, crystalline hands grasping the Guardian's armor at precisely calculated points. His enhanced strength combined with leverage technique, UES to force open a section of the living armor, exposing the dimensional energy core beneath. Now, he shouted, maintaining his grip despite the Guardian's violent attempts to dislodge him. Julie directed Ship with practiced coordination, the galvanic mechamorph extending a specialized tendril directly into the Guardian's exposed core. Authentication signals transmitted at quantum speeds, the replicated signature from the archive fragment interfacing directly with the entity's recognition protocols. For a moment, nothing happened. The Guardian continued struggling, dimensional energy lashing outward in increasingly erratic patterns. Then, abruptly, it froze, mask symbols rearranging rapidly as conflicting protocols activated simultaneously. Authentication signature recognized, it announced. Voice modulating between frequency patterns. Contradiction in primary directives detected. Reassessing threat parameters. Ben maintained his position, evolved consciousness perceiving the complex calculations occurring within the Guardian's matrix. We seek information only, he reiterated. Access to original blood Omnitrix schematics to understand its purpose and function. The Guardian's form stabilized, weapon appendages retracting into more neutral configurations. Partial authentication accepted. Limited access granted under supervision protocols. The dimensional portal behind the Guardian shifted. Chaotic energy patterns resolving into a stable gateway. Beyond its threshold, a vast repository became visible, shelves extending impossibly in all directions, filled with crystalline storage devices and ancient tomes bound in materials unknown to Earth science. The archive annex, Charmcaster breathed, silver hair lifting in the dimensional currents flowing from the portal. Exactly as the legends described. The Guardian stepped aside, creating a path to the portal. Primary user may enter. Secondary users remain in origin dimension. Ben glanced at his team, decision forming instantly. All go. The rest of you maintain position here and keep the portal stable. Not alone, Julie countered immediately. Ship and I are coming. His containment fields might be necessary inside. And I'm the only one who can read most of the archive's indexing system, Charmcaster added, determination evident in her stance. Ben weighed options quickly, evolutionary consciousness processing variables faster than his human mind ever could. Agreed. Julie, Charmcaster, with me. Gwen, Kevin, secure this side of the portal. If anything goes wrong, be prepared to force closure. Gwen nodded, concern visible beneath her professional demeanor. 14-minute window, remember. Don't cut it close. When do we ever cut it close? Ben replied with a ghost of his old smile, the expression strangely compelling on his crystalline features. Kevin snorted. Only every single time. The Guardian observed their exchange with inscrutable attention, mask symbols shifting in patterns that suggested analysis rather than aggression. As Ben, Julie, and Charmcaster approached the portal, it raised a hand in warning. Blood Omnitrix research classified Omega level. Access restrictions apply. Time limitation enforced. Understood. Ben acknowledged, stepping through the dimensional threshold with companions close behind. The transition felt different than previous dimensional travel experiences, smoother. As if his evolved form processed the quantum shift more efficiently than purely human biology could. The archive annex materialized around them with breathtaking scale and complexity. Knowledge from 1,000 realms preserved in a pocket dimension untouched by time. 14 minutes, Julie reminded them, ship's systems already scanning the vast collection for relevant signatures. Where do we start? Charmcaster oriented herself quickly, silver hair lifting in the strange currents that flowed through the repository. Classification indexes should be centralized. This way. They moved through the archive with the Guardian hovering at a consistent distance behind them, monitoring without interfering. The repository's organization became apparent. As they proceeded, knowledge arranged not alphabetically or chronologically, but according to dimensional origin and metaphysical properties. There, Charmcaster indicated a crystalline pedestal at W. Had appeared to be the archive's central junction. The Master Index. The pedestal contained a device unlike anything from Earth technology, a three-dimensional projection system that responded to Th. Patterns rather than physical interaction. As they approached, it activated automatically, geometric symbols arranging themselves in complex configurations. It's requesting search parameters, Charmcaster explained, interpreting the symbols with practiced ease. Blood Omnitrix, original schematics, creation protocols. The projection shifted, narrowing potential locations before highlighting a specific section of the repository, a sealed chamber accessible through a nearby archway. The Guardian moved forward, appendages reconfiguring to interface with the chamber's security mechanisms. Restricted knowledge zone. Partial authentication permits limited extraction only. Specify information requirements. Ben stepped forward, the merged Omnitrix pulsing in proximity to information about its origins. Original purpose and design. Evolutionary protocols. Integration safeguards. The Guardian processed this request, mask symbols rearranging in what appeared to be deliberation. Acceptable parameters. Proceed. The sealed chamber opened, revealing a smaller collection of materials specifically related to the Blood Omnitrix project. Unlike the main repository's organized structure, this section showed signs of hasty arrangement, materials gathered quickly during legerdemain's fall, preserved but not properly catalogued. 9 minutes remaining, Julie noted, ship extending. Scanning tendrils to begin data collection. Charmcaster moved with purpose among the scattered materials, identifying key components with practiced efficiency. These crystalline matrices contain the original schematics, she reported, indicating devices resembling multifaceted gemstones. And these tones document the theoretical framework behind the evolutionary protocols. Ben approached a central display where a holographic projection depicted the Blood Omnitrix in its original form, significantly different from the device he now carried. The projection showed a more organic construction, with components that appeared to pulse with internal life rather than mechanical precision. It was alive, he realized, evolutionary consciousness interpreting the schematics with unprecedented clarity. The original design incorporated living tissue, a symbiotic organism merged with technological components. Correct, came a new voice from deeper within the chamber. All three turned to see a figure emerging from between repository shelves, humanoid but clearly not human, with elongated proportions and skin that shimmered with faint luminescence. The being wore simple robes inscribed with symbols matching those on the Guardian's mask, suggesting similar origin. Archivist, the Guardian acknowledged, posture shifting to one of deference. I sensed the dimensional incursion, the Archivist explained, voice carrying harmonics similar to Ben's transformed state. The first in 7,000 cycles to seek this specific knowledge. Its attention focused on Ben, eyes widening slightly. And carrying a functional blood Omnitrix, no less. Fascinating. Who are you? Julie asked, ship reconfiguring into defensive position around her. I am Curator Prime, last survivor of the Legerdemain Archivists. The being's gaze remained fixed on Ben. We who preserved knowledge across dimensional boundaries, including the records of the Blood Omnitrix project. Charmcaster stepped forward, recognition flashing across her features. The Archivists were thought destroyed when Legerdemain fell. Most were, Curator Prime acknowledged. I survived by merging with the archive itself, becoming part of the dimensional matrix that preserves our knowledge. It gestured to the chamber around them. Neither fully alive nor dead, but persistent. Waiting. Waiting for what? Ben asked, sensing deeper purpose behind the Archivist's presence. For the Blood Omnitrix to fulfill its intended function. Curator Prime approached Ben slowly, studying his evolved form with scientific interest. Which it appears to be attempting. Albeit through unexpected pathways. Ben felt the merged Omnitrix respond to the Archivist's proximity, nanites accelerating through his system as if recognizing something familiar in the being's energy signature. What was its intended function? We were told it was Azimuth's first attempt at creating a universal translator of DNA. A simplification, Curator Prime replied, moving to the holographic display and adjusting its configuration with a gesture. The projection expanded, showing evolutionary pathways and dimensional interfaces far more complex than Ben had anticipated. The Blood Omnitrix was never merely a transformation device. It was designed to create a bridge. A bridge between what? Julie asked, scientific curiosity temporarily overriding caution. Between dimensional states of being. The Archivist manipulated the display further, revealing conceptual models of evolutionary transcendence. Between physical existence and energy consciousness. Between the limitations of singular form and the potential of quantum plurality. Charmcaster's expression darkened with recognition. You're talking about ascension technology. The forbidden path that destroyed the high arcana and fractured the dimensional barriers around Legerdemain. The same research, yes, but with crucial safeguards that the high arcana ignored, Curator Prime corrected. The Blood Omnitrix was designed to facilitate controlled transcendence, evolution beyond physical limitations without sacrificing individual consciousness or ethical framework. Ben processed this information, evolutionary consciousness making connections his human mind might have missed. It was meant to create beings capable of existing across dimensions. Guardians of some kind. Precisely. The Archivist's expression conveyed approval. Protectors who could perceive and interact with threats from beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. The Galvan provided the technological framework for biological adaptation. Legerdemain contributed the magical components necessary for consciousness to expand beyond physical constraints. And it failed, Julie concluded, glancing at the timeline displayed in the holographic projection. Otherwise we'd know about these guardians. It did not fail, Curator Prime corrected. It was abandoned. Azimuth lost confidence in the project when early integration attempts proved unstable. Test subjects exhibited the physical adaptations but lacked the psychological resilience necessary for consciousness expansion. The Archivist studied Ben with renewed interest. They became powerful, but lost their essential selves in the process. Became threats rather than protectors. Which is why Azimuth created the standard Omnitrix instead, Ben realized. A simplified version that allowed temporary transformation without permanent evolutionary changes. A compromise, the Archivist agreed. One that sacrificed the Blood Omnitrix's true potential for safety and reliability. Charmcaster had been examining the crystalline matrices containing the original schematics, her expression growing increasingly troubled. These integration protocols, they're designed to completely rewrite host consciousness alongside biological structure. The end result wouldn't be human in any meaningful sense. Not human, no, Curator Prime acknowledged. But neither would it be alien. Rather, something transcendent, consciousness freed from the limitations of singular physical form while maintaining core identity and purpose. Ben felt the implications settle into his evolutionary consciousness, both exhilarating and terrifying. The blood Omnitrix wasn't merely changing his body, it was preparing his mind for expansion beyond conventional reality. Each transformation, each adaptation, brought him closer to something beyond humanity yet anchored in human origins. 5 minutes, Julie reminded them, voice tight with concern. We need to take what we need and go. The archivist gestured toward the crystalline matrices Charmcaster had identified. You may take these. They contain the stabilization protocols necessary to guide integration without consciousness fracture. Its gaze fixed on Ben. You will need them. Your merged device has created an unprecedented evolutionary pathway, neither fully aligned with the original BL. Ood Omnitrix design nor completely bound by the limitations Azimuth imposed on later models. Is there danger? Ben asked directly, pragmatic despite the existential implications. Always, with evolution, Curator Prime replied. But also potential beyond imagining. The choice of direction ultimately remains yours, if you maintain sufficient self-awareness to make it. The warning echoed Charmcaster's earlier concerns. Ben nodded. Decision formed. We'll take the stabilization protocols and integration safeguards. Anything else crucial to understanding this process? The archivist considered briefly before moving to a secluded alcove, retrieving a small device that resembled a crystalline seed. This contains the consciousness expansion framework, the methodology for maintaining core identity during transcendence. It was the component Azimuth most feared, as it allows awareness across multiple dimensions simultaneously. That sounds intense, Julie commented, watching his ship car. E fully scanned and recorded data from the crystalline matrices. It is beyond conventional comprehension, Curator Prime confirmed. Which is why the preparation process is gradual, building neural pathways capable of processing multi-dimensional awareness without fragmentation. Charmcaster secured the materials they'd gathered, expression remaining troubled. These are dangerous technologies. If they fell into the wrong hands, they would be useless, the archivist interrupted. The protocols are keyed to specific biological configurations, compatible only with a host already undergoing Wielded evolution through properly calibrated Omnitrix technology. Its attention returned to Ben, which currently exists in precisely one being across the known multiverse. The implication wasn't lost on any of them. Whatever the blood Omnitrix was transforming Ben into, it represented a unique evolutionary path, one with implications extending far beyond personal transformation. 3 minutes, Julie warned. We need to move. The Guardian, which had remained silent throughout their exchange with the archivist, now moved toward the chamber entrance. Time limitation approaching. Departure protocols initiated. Ben gathered the consciousness expansion framework, feeling immediate resonance between it and the merged Omnitrix. Thank you for your assistance, Curator Prime. The archivist inclined its head slightly. I have waited 7,000 cycles for the blood Omnitrix to find its proper host. Whether you fulfill its intended purpose or chart an entirely new evolutionary path remains to be seen. Its expression conveyed something like hope. But for the first time in millennia, the possibility exists. As they prepared to depart, Charmcaster paused, turning back to the archivist. You said the project was abandoned when test subjects lost their essential selves. How do we prevent that outcome? Anchors, Curator Prime replied simply. Connections to what matters most. Relationships that define identity beyond mere biology or consciousness state. Its gaze moved meaningfully between Ben, Julie, and Charmcaster. The test subjects were isolated during transformity. Cut off from emotional bonds that might have preserved their core selves during transcendence. The insight resonated deeply with Ben's evolutionary consciousness, clarifying something he'd instinctively understood but couldn't articulate. His connections to others, to Julie, Gwen, Kevin, even the complex relationship developing with Charmcaster, these weren't merely psychological comfort but essential components of successful integration. 1 minute, Julie urged, already moving toward the chamber exit with ship securing their gathered materials. They departed swiftly, the Guardian escort ting them through the repository toward the dimensional portal where Gwen and Kevin maintained position on the other side. As they approached the threshold, Ben felt the merged Omnitrix pulse with renewed energy. Responding to the knowledge they'd acquired, Curator Prime watched their departure from the chamber entrance, its final words following them through the repository. Remember, evolution without purpose is merely change. Purpose gives direction to transcendence. The dimensional portal pulsed with increasing instability as they reached it. The 14-minute window nearly expired. Yuli transferred their gathered materials to ship's secure storage, while Charmcaster prepared protective spells for the transition back to their home dimension. Cutting it close as usual, Kevin's voice called through the fluctuating portal. Ben paused at the threshold, a final question forming in his evolutionary consciousness. He turned to the Guardian, which had accompanied them to the portal entrance. The Blood Omnitrix, who was it originally created for? Who was supposed to be its host? The Guardian's mask symbols rearranged in what might have been consideration before it answered. Original designated host. Azmuth of Galvan Prime. Purpose. Dimensional Guardian Prime. The revelation struck Ben with unexpected force. Azmuth had created the Blood Omnitrix for himself, designed it as a path to his own transcendence before abandoning the project. The implications of that decision, and what it revealed about the Galvan's fears regarding his own creation, would require careful consideration. But not now. The portal's stability reached critical limits, forcing their immediate departure. Ben stepped through the dimensional threshold with Julie and Charmcaster, the Guardian's final words following them across the boundary. Evolution continues. Transcendence approaches. Choose wisely, Blood Omnitrix bearer. Twilight painted the desert landscape in shades of amber and violet as their vehicle descended from the mountain range, returning to level ground where communication signals could once again reach plumber frequencies. The journey back had been largely silent, each team member processing what they had learned about the Blood Omnitrix's true purpose and implications. Ben had returned to his baseline evolved form after exiting the dimensional portal, the CR. Eastaline aspects of his transformed state receding beneath his skin. He sat beside Kevin in the forward compartment, gaze distant as his evolutionary consciousness integrated new information into existing understanding. Signal incoming, Kevin reported, breaking the contemplative silence. Encrypted plumber emergency channel. The vehicle's communication system activated automatically. Project. Ing a holographic display above the central console. Rook Blanco's familiar face appeared, his normally composed expression showing signs of strain. Ben, we have a situation, the Ravanagonder began without preamble. Plumber headquarters has been compromised. The smuggler you apprehended during the Blood Omnitrix incident has escaped custody with external assistance. Ben straightened, attention sharpening. What kind of external assistance? Unknown technology with temporal manipulation capabilities, Rook replied, glancing occasionally off-screen as if monitoring other situations simultaneously. Security footage shows chronological disruption similar to the hunter units you encountered, but more sophisticated. The same people who want the Blood Omnitrix, Gwen concluded from the rear compartment. Most concerning is what the smuggler accessed before escaping, Rook continued. She downloaded complete files on your recent activities, including all biometric data collected during your initial transformation. Additionally, she left a message specifically addressed to you, Ben. Play it, Ben instructed, exchanging concerned glances with Julie. The display shifted, placing Rook's image with that of the smuggler, amber eyes gleaming with triumph despite the restraint marks still visible on her wrists. Her voice carried the same confident authority they remembered from the warehouse confrontation. Hello, Tennyson. By now you've realized you're not merely changing, you're evolving into something unprecedented. Perhaps you've even discovered the Blood Omnitrix's true purpose. Her smile widened fractionally. But you haven't asked the most important question, why now? Why, after all these years, has this particular technology resurfaced? She leaned closer to the recording device, expression intensifying. Because the dimensions are bleeding together, Tennyson. The walls between realities are thinning. Something is coming. Something ancient and hungry that consumes entire universes. The Chronosapiens know it, the Celestial Sapiens fear it, and Azmuth. Her expression shifted to contempt. Azmuth runs from it, as he always runs from consequences. The smuggler straightened, composure returning. The blood Omnitrix was created for a specific purpose, to forge a guardian capable of perceiving and counteracting threats from beyond dimensional boundaries. A protector for all reality. Not just one small planet. That's what you're becoming, whether you understand it yet or not. Her final words carried unexpected weight. We'll meet again soon, Tennyson. When we do, you'll need to decide whether you're fighting to protect your small human life, or embracing the greater purpose evolution has chosen for you. The blood Omnitrix found you for a reason. I suggest you discover what that reason is before it's too late for all of us. The message ended, returning to Rook's concerned face. We are attempting to track her movements, but the Tempora L disruption has made conventional methods ineffective. Focus on securing Plumber headquarters against further incursions, Ben instructed, leadership flowing naturally despite his distracted thoughts. We'll handle the smuggler's situation from our end. After exchanging a few more details, the communication ended, leaving the team to process this new development alongside their archive discoveries. Well, that was cryptic and ominous, Kevin remarked, guiding the vehicle around a rock formation. Dimensional walls thinning, ancient hungry things. Tuesday as usual for Team Tennyson. Gwen ignored her partner's attempt at levity, focus already shifting to practical concerns. If the smuggler accessed your biometric data, she could potentially track the evolutionary changes happening within your system. We should assume she can locate us at will. Which means we need a secure location to analyze what we've gathered from the archive, Julie added, ship-chirping agreement from her shoulder. Ben remained silent. Evolutionary consciousness processing multiple information streams simultaneously. The archive materials, the smuggler's warning, the archivist's insights about transcendence and purpose. Patterns emerged that his human mind might never have connected, revealing a larger picture with disturbing clarity. She's telling the truth, he said finally, drawing everyone's attention. About the dimensional boundaries weakening, at least. I can perceive it now that I know what to look for. Subtle fluctuations in reality's underlying structure, like microfractures spreading through glass. Your enhanced perception allows you to see dimensional instabilities. Charmcaster asked, professional interest momentarily overriding other concerns. Ben nodded, gaze distant as he processed sensory input beyond conventional human perception. Not just see, feel. The merged Omnitrix responds to them, nanites adapting to counteract the fluctuations within my immediate vicinity. He refocused on his companions. It's been happening for months, gradually intensifying. That's why the blood Omnitrix resurfaced now, responding to dimensional threats the way Azimuth designed it to. So the smugglers group, whoever they are, want you to become this dimensional guardian. Julie framed the question carefully, studying Ben's expression for signs of how the evolutionary consciousness was processing these revelations. They want the blood Omnitrix to fulfill its original purpose, Ben corrected. Whether that happens with me as its host or someone else probably doesn't matter to them. It should, Charmcaster interjected with unexpected vehemence. The consciousness expansion framework we retrieved from the archive makes it clear, successful integration depends on the host's psychological resilience and core identity. The wrong host could result in a transcended being with catastrophic priorities. Kevin glanced in the rearview mirror, eyebrow raised. As opposed to Tennyson, whose priorities are consistent, Gwen answered before Ben could. Whatever power he's wielded, whatever form he's taken, Ben's core principles have remained remarkably stable. Protection, responsibility, compassion. Her gaze met her cousin's, conveying understanding beyond words. That's why the blood Omnitrix is integrating successfully with him when previous test subjects failed. His essential self has always been stronger than whatever power he wields. The observation struck Ben with unexpected force, not because it surprised him, but because it articulated something. His evolutionary consciousness had been processing beneath conscious awareness. His identity had never been defined by the Omnitrix or his alien transformations, they were tools through which his essential self expressed its purpose. That realization brought clarity to the choice before him. The blood Omnitrix wasn't rewriting who he was, it was expanding what he could be, building upon the foundation established through years of wielding extraordinary power with consistent principles. We need to understand exactly what this dimensional guardian role entails before committing to it, Julie noted pragmatically. The materials from the archive should provide more specific information about the consciousness expansion process and what lies beyond it. Agreed, Ben said, decision forming. But first, we need a secure location where we can analyze everything without interference. And I need to attempt contact with Azimuth again, with what we've learned about his original involvement with the Blood Omnitrix. He might finally respond. My workshop isn't secure enough, Kevin admitted reluctantly. Not against temporal technology that can breach Plumber headquarters. I know somewhere that might work. Charmcaster offered after brief consideration. One of Hex's former strongholds in the dimensional nexus borderlands. It exists partially outside conventional spacetime, difficult to locate without specific magical signatures. Ben weighed options quickly, evolutionary consciousness processing variables and probabilities. That works. Kevin, change course to Charmcaster's coordinates. Julie, begin preliminary analysis of the archive materials with ship's assistance. Gwen, establish magical concealment around our vehicle, just in case the smuggler's tracking capabilities extend to conventional methods. The team responded with practiced efficiency, each member adapting to their assigned tasks without question. The dynamics between them had evolved over years of shared challenges, trust built through repeatedly demonstrated competence rather than mere familiarity. As plans formed around him, Ben turned his attention inward, exploring the changes continuing within his evolving form. The nanites had accelerated their activity following exposure to the archive materials, establishing new neural pathways and sensory processing systems throughout his body. His perception continued expanding, allowing him to perceive quantum fluctuations in the fabric of reality itself. More significant were the changes to his consciousness, not personality or core values, but the framework through which he processed information and formed understanding. Connections appeared where none had existed before, patterns emerging from seemingly unrelated data points. Time itself began to appear less linear, more like a dimensional landscape that could be perceived from multiple vantage points simultaneously. This, Ben realized, was the beginning of the consciousness expansion he archivist had described, the preparation for awareness beyond conventional dimensional constraints. The process wasn't rewriting who he was, but it was fundamentally changing how he perceived and interacted with reality. The implications were both exhilarating and terrifying. If the Blood Omnitrix completed its work, he would become something beyond human, a being capable of perceiving and affecting multiple dimensions simultaneously. Protecting reality itself from threats beyond conventional comprehension. But would that being still be Ben Tennyson in any meaningful sense? Would the consciousness that emerged from transcendence retain the connections and values that defined his human existence? The archivist had emphasized anchors, relationships that defined identity beyond biology or consciousness state. Ben's gaze moved across his companions. Julie focused on preliminary analysis of archive materials, ship extending scanning tendrils across crystalline data matrices. Gwen weaving complex magical concealment around their vehicle, silver-violet energy flowing from her hands with practiced precision. Kevin navigating difficult terrain while simultaneously reconfiguring the vehicle. Defensive systems for maximum efficiency. Charmcaster consulting ancient texts retrieved from her satchel, silver hair catching the last rays of sunset as she worked. These connections, these relationships, would be his anchors if the evolutionary process continued to completion. The people who knew Ben Tennyson not just as hero or Omnitrix wielder, but as person, friend, family. Their presence might make the difference between successful transcendence and the consciousness fracture that had claimed previous test subjects. The merged Omnitrix pulsed softly on his wrist, as if responding to his thoughts. Whatever he was becoming, whatever challenges lay ahead, Ben wouldn't face them alone. That knowledge provided something the archive materials couldn't. Not information or protocols, but purpose. Direction for transcendence, as Curator Prime had phrased it. As their vehicle continued through the darkening desert toward Charmcaster's sanctuary, Ben felt the weight of choice settling upon him, not just for himself, but potentially for reality itself. The Blood Omnitrix had found him for a reason. Whether that reason aligned with his own choices remained to be seen. But one thing was certain, whatever he became, it would be on his terms, guided by the principles and connections that had defined Ben Tennyson long before the Blood Omnitrix entered his life. Evolution might change what he was. But it wouldn't change who he was, not if he maintained sufficient awareness to make that choice. The nanites continued their work beneath his skin, preparing biology and consciousness or transformation beyond human limitations. Above, stars emerged in the darkening sky, countless worlds across vast distances, all potentially affected by the choice of one evolving being on a small blue planet. Ben had never asked for this responsibility, just as he'd never asked for the original Omnitrix all those years ago. But as always, he would bear it with the quiet determination that had transformed a reckless child into the hero he had become. Evolution continued, transcendence approached, and Ben Tennyson would face it as he had faced every challenge before, one step at a time, guided by the connections that anchored him to his essential self. Whatever came next, that much wouldn't change. Chapter 2 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.